if you ask the man on the street, he'd say, well, it gets rid of stuff, right? And that's true. So it's a kind of a metabolic garbage disposal unit. So it does get rid of garbage. Of course, we have a fancy term for that. But beyond that, the kidney has a very important function at maintaining the status of fluids and water. And so it's an organ that regulates the composition of ions and water in the body. And as you well know from the very first lectures, we need to maintain a certain equilibrium so that all our systems can work well. And if we deviate grossly from the normal milieu that is in plasma or in interstitial fluid or in the cells, then our physiological functions fail. It's also sort of an endocrine organ too. So who can name the systems? This is very trite, but this is my attempt to bribe you into being interactive. I hope it works. Look, I want you to ask questions, okay? You know, if it gets to the point where there's more questions than me talking, then we'll come up with another plan. But I think interaction's important, and I do encourage you to stop me if you want to know something. So, what endocrine systems? Angiotensin. Okay, who said that? Was that Morgan?
It was.
Oh. I'm not going to write these up on the board, but renin-angiotensin system, ever heard of it? You will. Okay. Not all of them now, Morgan.
I was just saying, complimenting on your choice of snacks.
Really? They're good, are they? Are they a good bribe?
They are.
Excellent. So everybody, it's a good bribe, and therefore we're going to interact. Okay. So the renin-angiotensin system, what else? Erythropoietin. I didn't write that up because I have trouble spelling that, don't you? Okay. What else? ADH is a good guess, but ADH has an action on the kidney, but ADH is not made in the kidney, okay? It's worth 2 of the great snacks if you can get the next one. Okay. I'm going to say vitamin D, and I know some of you will argue and say, well, vitamin D is not really a hormone, but essentially it acts like a hormone, and the kidney's responsible for activating it. So let's have you learned by Dr. Monaco he's very precise. We're physiologists, we take a lot of shortcuts. So that's my representation of a nephron, and we don't need to get into semantics about what the true definition of a nephron is. I'm a simple physiologist, so to me a nephron, it starts at the glomerulus and it ends where you generate your urine. So I've missed something out. That diagram actually has a second capillary bed. So this is a representation. This is the glomerulus. This is the afferent arteriole. This is the efferent arteriole. This is a peritubular capillary. And this is where the tubular fluid goes from the Bowman space eventually into the bladder. Maybe I'm jumping ahead just a little bit. I kind of assume that that's been done with Dr. Monaco, but it's a podcast and it was available yesterday, which doesn't mean that you've actually done that yet, right? Okay, so it will look a little bit more complex. So blood comes in here into the afferent arteriole, and I'll label it too in the circumstances. So this is the afferent arteriole, this is the efferent arteriole, this is the glomerulus, and this is the tubule. So there are three processes that we need to be concerned about. These are genuine capillaries, so blood comes in, blood arrives at the glomerulus, and just like any other capillary, there is filtration through that capillary. The difference between the renal glomerular capillary and other capillaries is that there's massive filtration here. You know that in a muscle capillary, you get some filtration, and so you get some movement of fluid into the interstitium, and then most of the fluid gets reabsorbed back into the capillary. Here we have massive filtration. It generates a filtrate in the tubules. Okay? So the first item there is filtration. Is this too basic for you? Do I need to speed it up? This is okay? Okay, good, thank you. I did get a response from one of you, and that's great. Thank you very much. So filtration. So, oh gosh. There's renal blood flow. We don't talk about renal blood flow because blood has got red blood cells in, and the kidneys don't process red blood cells or white blood cells. So we tend to talk about renal plasma flow. So we're delivering, every minute, we're delivering about 650 mils of plasma to the kidney. And I think that's in the handout. Something like a fifth of it's filtered. 125 mils per minute. That's a massive filtration. Okay? So, if I made that much, and there's urine production every minute. Okay? So something happens between here and here. 99% of most things are reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. And needless to say, they pass from the tubule into the peritubular capillary. That process is called reabsorption. And there's one other process that I want to talk about, and that is the process of secretion. We often tend to forget about it. But even though you can filter a phenomenal amount and get rid of it that way, we also have a second mechanism for getting things into the tubule, and it's called secretion. So in other words, substances can move from the peritubular capillary into the tubule.